Have you ever sat across from a woman, maybe your wife, your girlfriend, maybe just someone you deeply wanted, and felt that unsettling silence? She smiles, she nods, she laughs at the right moments, but somehow you know you're missing something. She's with you, but not fully with you, like she's there but locked behind 1,000 tiny doors you don't know how to open. Most men think the solution is doing more gifts, more texts, more effort. But what if it's not about doing more? What if it's about understanding what she never says out loud? Because the truth is, every woman is wired with a set of silent cravings, emotional fingerprints she rarely speaks of, but always longs for. She craves presence, but not just your physical body. She craves unpredictability, but not chaos. She craves safety, but not suffocation. And yet, most men, in trying to love her, end up smothering the very desire that made her choose them in the first place. This video isn't about tactics or manipulation. It's about understanding the unspoken world inside her. The world where words don't live, but emotions rule. And when you learn to walk through that world, when you learn to see her, not just look at her, you stop chasing her because she starts chasing you. Let's begin. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with a woman and truly felt her? I don't mean just hearing her words or noticing the way she adjusted her hair. I mean actually feeling the space between you, the invisible electricity or the aching emptiness. Maybe it was over dinner, maybe lying beside her in bed, or maybe it was in the middle of an argument where everything felt louder than it should have been. And in that moment, maybe you thought, I'm doing everything I can. Why does it still feel like it's not enough? Because here's the thing. So many men pour themselves into relationships with good intentions, protection, provision, support. And still something feels missing. She grows distant, quiet, irritated, maybe even bored. You try to fix it. You become more available, more attentive, more generous. But what if I told you she's not starving for more of you? She's starving for a version of you that you've forgotten how to be. Because behind every woman who seems hard to reach is a secret language she's hoping you'll learn. Not because she wants to control you, but because she wants to feel alive in your presence. And unless you can speak to the parts of her she keeps hidden even from herself, she will slowly pull away. She may never say why, but she will go. Let's begin where most men go wrong, presence and no, not just being in the room. I'm talking about that deep, grounded, slow-burning attention that makes her feel like the only thing that exists. Not because you're performing or trying to impress her, but because you're awake. Your phone is not buzzing, your thoughts aren't rushing to tomorrow, and your body isn't just occupying space. You are with her entirely. When you're truly present with a woman, you're not just listening to her words, you're feeling their temperature. You're noticing the way she pauses when she's unsure. You're curious about the places where her voice gets softer, and you lean in, not to fix, but to witness. And in those moments she softens, not because you said the right thing, but because your presence said what your words couldn't. Many women walk through the world guarded, not because they're closed, but because they've been touched by men who were never really there. And when you bring that rare presence, the kind that slows her heart instead of speeding it up, you give her the permission to rest. Not in your arms, but in your energy. But presence alone isn't enough, because once she feels seen, she wants to feel stirred. And this is where most men, especially those trying to do everything right, accidentally kill her desire. Because she doesn't crave predictability, she craves aliveness, the unexpected glance, the mysterious silence, the masculine confidence that doesn't explain itself. You see, desire dies in the absence of surprise. And while women say they want stability, and many do, what they secretly crave is the man who makes their world feel just a little more dangerous. Not unsafe, no, but unknown. She wants to be taken into the wilderness of your mind, to experience the thrill of not having you completely figured out. Not because you're playing games, but because you're still playing life. When was the last time you caught her off guard with your silence? Not a cold, punishing silence, but a powerful pause, the kind that made her lean in, the kind that said, "You don't need to earn my love, but you don't own all of me either." That balance of intimacy and mystery is magnetic, and when a woman feels that, she starts reaching for you. Because she feels something stirring inside her that she forgot she could feel. Too many men think that love means total access, that in order to love fully, they must be available always, answer every question, remove every doubt. But the truth is, what a woman secretly craves is the man who still has places inside him that are unmapped, places she can explore, not control, and yet, even with presence and mystery, there's something even deeper. A third craving, hidden beneath all her surface desires. She wants to feel chosen, not just liked, not just loved. Chosen, let me explain. You can tell a woman you love her 1,000 times, and yet she might still feel unsure. You can show up, pay the bills, hold her at night, and still something inside her stays tight, because what she craves isn't duty. It's the feeling that out of all the women in the world, you see her in a way no one else does, that your attention isn't just habitual. It's specific, personal, voluntary. She wants to be the woman you admire across the room, even after years of routine. She wants to feel like the only person you'd want to talk to if the world went silent for a day, and not because she needs your constant reassurance, but because she longs to feel irreplaceable. Every woman does, but here's the nuance. She doesn't want to feel chosen just because she fits into your life. She wants to feel chosen because she awakens something in you that even you forgot was there. She wants to feel that when you're with her, you're not just going through motions. You're accessing a part of yourself that no one else ever touches. And how does that happen? Not through grand gestures, but through attention to the little things, the way her shoulders rise when she's excited, the phrase she uses when she's trying not to cry, the way she turns inward when she doesn't feel safe, and how you, quietly and without instruction, move closer instead of backing away. Women crave this kind of noticing, not because they are fragile, but because the world often overlooks them. And when you see what others miss, you become more than just a partner. You become the mirror she trusts. And that trust, that's the soil where deep desire grows. So yes, she wants your presence. She wants your mystery. She wants to feel like the chosen one, but all of these are just the surface signals of something even more primal. She craves emotional safety, not the kind where you agree with everything she says, but the kind where she knows she can bring you her joy, her rage, her confusion, and you won't flinch. That's where we'll go next. You see, emotional safety isn't about being agreeable. It's about being anchored. It's when a woman can show you the storm inside her, and instead of trying to shut it down, you hold steady. She doesn't want to be managed, she wants to be met, and when a man meets her emotionally without shrinking, fixing, or fleeing, he becomes unforgettable. But it's hard, isn't it? Because many men have been taught that emotions are explosive, dangerous, irrational. Especially hers. So when she raises her voice, or retreats into silence, or suddenly turns away mid-sentence, your nervous system tightens. You want to solve it, soothe it, or make it disappear, not because you're weak, but because you were never taught how to stay with her in that space without getting swallowed by it. Yet this is where so many women feel unseen, because their emotional intensity is not a threat, it's a test. A test of your depth, your rootedness, your ability to hold contradiction without collapsing. When she cries, she's not always asking you to fix something. When she's angry, she's not always attacking you. When she's distant, she's not always rejecting you. Sometimes she's just trying to see, can you still love me when I'm not convenient? And if you can't, she will shrink to protect you. She'll start to filter herself, silencing her deeper truths so you don't feel overwhelmed. and little by little, the woman you once knew begins to disappear. Not because she stopped loving you, but because she no longer felt safe to bring all of herself into the room. What she secretly craves is the man who doesn't confuse emotional intensity with danger, the man who sees her tears not as weakness, but as honesty, the man who knows that her rage is sometimes just her longing screaming for air. When she feels that kind of safety, she softens in ways that no charm, no wealth, no physique could ever unlock. Her laughter becomes freer, her body becomes more open, her voice becomes more honest, because finally, she can stop performing and just be. And in that state of emotional openness, something else awakens in her, a hunger for play, for lightness, for adventure, not in the way we usually define it. She doesn't always need new countries or lavish vacations. She needs to feel like life with you is not a sentence but an exploration, something that grows, evolves, and surprises her. This is where many men, especially the responsible ones, start to feel confused. But I'm doing everything right, they say. I show up, I provide, I'm loyal, and yes, those are beautiful things, but love is not just about security. It's also about spontaneity. It's not only about being safe, it's about being stimulating. She craves moments that make her heart skip, that remind her she's not just your partner, but your playmate, that behind the bills and chores and schedules is still the boy in you who can look her in the eyes with mischief, not just management. When was the last time you teased her with no agenda, or pulled her close in the kitchen just to dance? Or whispered something in her ear that made her blush, not because it was vulgar, but because it was unexpected? These are the moments that don't cost money, but they create a currency of emotional wealth that no bank account can hold. She wants to laugh with you, not just once in a while, but often, not because everything's perfect, but because in spite of the mess, you still choose joy. And when a man can bring levity into a woman's life, when he can laugh without sarcasm, flirt without expectation, and play without control, he becomes a source of light she never knew she needed. And yet, even the lightest woman has shadows, and here lies another secret most men miss. She wants to be known. Not in the way that says, I know your favorite color, but in the way that says, I see your darkness and I don't run. Because every woman carries a hidden grief, a disappointment, a betrayal, a story from childhood she's never fully told. She may smile often. She may be the strong one in the family. But there is a place in her that still aches for someone who will not just tolerate her pain, but sit beside it. Not dissect it, not explain it, just sit and witness and stay. When a man can hold a woman's pain without trying to fix her, he gives her something she may have never received before, emotional companionship. Not just romance, not just sex, but the profound experience of being felt, even in her brokenness, and in return something incredible happens. She trusts you with her fire, not just her softness, but her raw, passionate, untamed self, and now you're no longer just her partner. You're her sanctuary, the place she comes to not to be edited, but to be expanded. This is not easy work. It requires you as a man to be deeply connected to your own emotional world, to your anger, your fear, your longing. Because you cannot sit with her pain if you're afraid of your own. You cannot witness her chaos if you're still running from yours. But if you can learn to breathe through discomfort, to stay when every part of you wants to run, you will become the man she doesn't just want, but respects. And that is the deepest secret. Women crave admiration too, but they want to admire you. They want to look at the man beside them and feel proud. Not because of your achievements, but because of your emotional maturity, your honesty, your strength, not the strength that intimidates, but the strength that includes. When a man leads with integrity, presence, and emotional depth, when he can laugh, cry, tease, protect, and surrender without losing himself, he becomes rare. Not flashy, not perfect, but rare, and when a woman finds a rare man, she doesn't need convincing, she doesn't need chasing. She chooses him over and over again, in the bedroom, in the living room, in the silence, in the storm. Because he's not just the man who gives her what she wants, he's the man who understands what she never knew how to ask for. And that is everything. But of course, even the rarest man can lose a woman if he forgets this next secret. That behind her confidence, behind her strength, behind the smile she wears like armor, is a deep yearning to feel cherished. Not tolerated, not managed, cherished. It sounds simple, but so many men confuse cherishing with coddling. Or they confuse it with grand gestures, flowers, fancy dinners, extravagant apologies, but true cherishing. It happens in the quiet, it lives in the moments no one else sees. It's in the way you touch her lower back when she's stressed. It's the way you look at her when she's not trying to be beautiful. It's in how you defend her spirit in rooms where she's not even present. When a woman feels cherished, she doesn't feel like an accessory. She feels like a priority, not just because you said it, but because your actions made it unmistakably clear. She senses that even in your silence there is devotion, even in your stillness there is choosing. But here's where it gets more subtle. A woman doesn't only want to be cherished for how she makes you feel. She wants to be cherished for who she is when she's not trying to please anyone, when she's messy, when she's moody. When she's unsure of herself, she wants to know that your love doesn't shrink when her shine dims, that your admiration isn't performance-based. So many women become caretakers in their relationships because they're terrified that if they stop giving, they'll stop being loved. And when a man finally says, "You don't have to earn me, I'm already here," her entire nervous system relaxes. She breathes differently, she touches you differently, she opens in places that even she forgot existed. That's the kind of cherishing that breaks generational fear. And this brings us to something more vulnerable. Something almost every woman aches for, but will rarely speak aloud. She craves reverence, not worship. Not pedestalizing, but that soulful sense that you don't just want her, you honor her. And it doesn't mean she wants you to bow at her feet. It means she wants to be looked at with the same awe you'd give to something sacred, something mysterious. Something you respect as much as you desire, because for most women the pain hasn't been that they were unloved, it's that they were used. For their body, for their support, for their availability. But when you bring reverence into intimacy, when you touch her like her body is not just yours to enjoy, but a temple to respect, you awaken something in her that is ancient. Spiritual, wild, she becomes not just a partner, not just a lover, but a force, and it starts long before the bedroom. It begins with the way you speak to her in front of others, the way you speak about her when she's not around, the way you refuse to let stress make you careless with your tone, the way you treat her emotional body, the way you treat a sacred fire, not something to extinguish, but something to understand, contain, and honor. Reverence is when you remember that loving her is a privilege, not an obligation, not a transaction, but a conscious choice to meet the divine through her. And when she feels that reverence from you, when she feels held, not just touched, she begins to pour. She becomes generous in ways you didn't even know to ask for, not because she's trying to keep you, but because your respect makes her overflow. And now, in that space where presence, mystery, safety, cherishing, and reverence all meet, a final desire begins to surface. One that is both spiritual and deeply human. She wants to feel like she inspires you, not just pleases you, not just supports you. She wants to feel like her existence moves something in you, because at the core every woman wants to know that her love is not just received, but transformative, that her presence calls forth the strongest, wisest, most alive version of the man she chose, that her words sharpen your vision. That her pain deepens your empathy, that her touch doesn't just arouse your body, but awakens your soul. She doesn't want to lead your life. She wants to know that her love has direction, that when she offers her heart, it doesn't get lost in routine, but becomes fuel for something bigger. And you might be thinking, but that's a lot of pressure. It's not about pressure, it's about invitation. She's not asking you to change your life for her. She's asking you to let her presence matter, to let her love mean something, not as a reward, but as a mirror. Because when a woman sees that her energy inspires you, when she sees that her existence expands yours, she will give you her trust, her loyalty, her body, her mind, and her future. Not because you earned it, but because she felt it, and that's the difference between a woman who loves with caution and a woman who loves with fire. She doesn't want a man who just loves her. She wants a man who rises because of her. And when you become that man, when you let her truth refine you, her strength challenge you, her softness steady you, you stop being just a partner. You become a movement, not because you did everything right, but because you understood her silence. And in that silence you heard every secret she never knew how to say. There is something powerful about a woman when she feels emotionally safe and fully seen. It's not always loud. In fact, it often happens in the quiet, in the way she starts moving differently in your presence. Slower, more fluid, not because she's trying to seduce you, but because she no longer has to guard herself. That's when she becomes magnetic, not because she's trying to impress, but because she's finally free. And in that freedom another craving emerges, one that many women bury beneath layers of politeness, of ambition, of mothering, managing, and accommodating. She craves to be led. Now wait, don't mistake this for dominance or control. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about authority rooted in ego. I'm talking about direction, about clarity, about masculine energy that moves forward, not away from her, not over her, but with her. With strength, with certainty, with emotional intelligence. You see, the modern man has often been taught to play small in relationships, to defer, to stay passive, to not rock the boat. But that passivity, it kills her desire, not because she wants to be dominated, but because she wants to relax. And she cannot relax if she's always the one initiating, organizing, holding it all together. There's a part of every woman, no matter how strong or accomplished, that wants to lean back, to be held in the current of a man's conviction. She wants to feel that you're not just drifting through life, waiting for her cues. She wants to know, can you hold your own vision and still make room for me? When you make decisions not out of fear but intention, when you show her that you've thought about the next step, not just in your life, but in your connection, when you initiate without needing her permission every step of the way, something melts in her, not because she's weak, but because she's tired of carrying everything alone. A man who leads with heart and steadiness gives her something most people don't, permission to rest, to be soft, to surrender without fear of being controlled or discarded, and when she rests, she stops keeping score. She stops bracing, she stops fighting to be understood, because she finally feels supported. But leadership in love isn't loud. It's not showy, it's not about dominance, it's about emotional competence. It's about knowing when to step forward and when to step aside. It's about holding a larger view, not just of the moment, but of the meaning inside the moment. When you speak with clarity, when you protect without possessing, when you move toward problems instead of avoiding them, you signal something primal to her nervous system. You are safe to trust. And trust is not built on declarations. It's built on discernment. Can you read the room when her eyes glaze over? Can you sense when she's craving closeness but afraid to ask? Can you see beneath the behavior into the belief? Because leadership is not about knowing everything, it's about caring enough to tune in. And now with presence, mystery, safety, cherishing, reverence, inspiration, and leadership alive between you, there's one more sacred longing. one that exists beyond the mind, beyond logic. She craves depth, emotional, spiritual, sensual depth, the kind that makes her feel like loving you is an experience, not a task. Depth is when she can talk to you for hours without feeling drained, when silence between you feels full, not empty, when intimacy isn't just about what happens in bed, but what happens before, the looks, the gestures, the way your hands speak without words. Depth is when your connection doesn't just skim the surface of daily life, but dives beneath it. It's when you talk about fear, about desire, about regret, about longing, and not just hers but yours, because depth is a two-way invitation. She can only go as deep as you're willing to go with yourself, and that's the hidden truth so many men avoid. That the woman who wants your depth also wants your vulnerability, not your weakness, your vulnerability. The part of you that still remembers the boy you once were, the one who got hurt, who got lost, who dreamed big but never said it out loud. She wants to touch that part, not to fix it, but to witness it, to be let in. She doesn't need you to cry every day. She needs to know there's something real behind your strength, something human, something that bleeds. Because when she sees your emotional truth, she trusts your power more, and here's where the loop completes. When you lead with presence, when you cherish her without condition, when you bring mystery, safety, reverence, and emotional companionship, and when you finally meet her in the deep waters of vulnerability, she no longer wonders if she is loved. She feels it, not just in your words, not just in your hands, but in the way you live, in the way you speak, in the way you look at her, with the kind of gaze that says, I don't just want your body. I want your essence. I want the part of you that can't be posted or performed or explained. And when a woman feels desired in her essence, she becomes fire. Not for attention, but for union, the kind of union that awakens both of you, the kind that transcends time, that rewrites old stories, that breaks cycles, that makes you both remember what this whole thing is really about. Because in the end, she's not asking you to be perfect. She's asking you to be present, to be honest, to be curious, to be open, to be strong enough to stay and soft enough to listen. And when you do, something extraordinary begins to unfold. She starts to glow, not because you gave her anything, but because you finally stopped dimming her. You see, a woman doesn't shine because she's complimented. She shines because she's understood. When you no longer try to correct her emotions, when you stop dismissing the intensity in her eyes or the way her voice shakes when she's passionate, she comes alive in a way that is undeniable. Because now she's not surviving in love, she's dancing in it, and that glow, it's not just for her. It's for you too, because the more she softens, the more she returns that sacred energy to you. It's in the way she touches your chest as you speak, like she's feeling your words rather than just hearing them. It's in the meals she makes when she knows you've had a long day, not out of obligation, but out of desire. It's in the way she smiles at you like you are still a mystery, still worth discovering, still hers. This is what men often misunderstand about a woman's secret cravings. They are not manipulations, they are mirrors. She is not asking for more than you can give. She is inviting you into a version of yourself that maybe, just maybe, you've forgotten how to be. She doesn't want to take your power, she wants to feel it, and not the kind that postures or dominates. The kind that holds, breathes, anchors, the kind that says, you can rage, you can cry, you can ask for what you need. And I will still be here. That kind of power is irresistible, not because it controls, but because it creates trust. And when a woman trusts you, you don't have to seduce her, you don't have to prove anything. She comes toward you willingly, body, mind, soul. She leans in because there is space for her to be messy. She laughs more freely because you don't turn her vulnerability into weakness. She initiates intimacy not because she has to, but because your presence calls it forth. And your leadership in love becomes effortless not because you're managing her, but because you're mastering yourself. That's when you start to see it in her eyes, the safety, the wildness, the quiet reverence that says, I can finally exhale. Not because you gave her a perfect life, but because you gave her the one thing that every woman secretly craves but rarely receives, your emotional clarity. The man who knows what he feels, the man who isn't afraid to love fiercely, but also walk away from anything that dishonors his values. The man who listens not to respond but to understand. The man who brings depth, not drama, grounding, not guilt, vision, not volatility. When you become this man, you don't chase women, you attract devotion, because when a woman meets a man like this, something ancient stirs inside her. Her feminine energy awakens not because it's told to, but because it's safe enough to rise. It doesn't rush. It doesn't demand. It opens gently, powerfully, fully, and that's the part of her most men never get to see. Not because she's hiding it, but because they never created the conditions for it to exist. You don't unlock that part of her with pressure or performance. You unlock it with attunement, with your capacity to feel her before she speaks, to notice the small shifts, the breath she holds when she's afraid to be judged, the smile she offers when she doesn't want to seem needy, the words she doesn't say because the world has taught her that too much honesty is dangerous. When you show her that her emotional truth is not too much, not too intense, not too sensitive, not too dramatic, she begins to trust that your love isn't conditional, that she doesn't have to twist herself into an acceptable shape to keep you, and that is the beginning of something rare. Because now you're not just in a relationship, you're in a resonance. It's the kind of connection where you don't have to speak every word, yet she hears you. Where you don't always have to explain your heart, yet she feels it. Where disagreements don't turn into disrespect, and silence doesn't mean disconnection. Where desire doesn't fade with time, but deepens with trust. This is what women crave behind the filters, the smiles, the polished exterior. They crave a man who leads with love, but never loses himself in it, who doesn't disappear to keep the peace, who doesn't perform to be liked, who doesn't hide behind logic when feeling is required. She wants your mind, yes. But even more, she wants your presence. She wants your protection, yes. But even more, she wants your patience. She wants your strength, yes, but even more she wants your softness, because when she gets all of you, not just the curated, composed, rational version, but the whole man, you don't just satisfy her. You change her, you remind her that it's still possible, that love can be honest, that men can be deep, that intimacy can be sacred, that relationships can be home, and in that home she'll give you everything. Not because she's trying to keep you, but because she's finally free. And isn't that what we all long for? Freedom not from each other, but with each other. A love that doesn't cage us in, but calls us forth. Where she doesn't have to shrink her spirit just to keep your attention, and you don't have to harden your heart just to hold her intensity. That is the quiet miracle of relational maturity, where love becomes less about performance and more about presence, where you stop needing to be right and start choosing to be real, where intimacy becomes less about having your needs met and more about meeting each other in the full humanity of what it means to love and to be loved back. She doesn't want to win a man, she wants to feel him. She wants to lie next to you at night and know that your body is there, yes, but your soul is with her. That even in silence she can hear your commitment, that even when the days are hard, she doesn't doubt where she stands in your heart. And this, truly, is the final secret. She doesn't just crave connection, she craves certainty, not the kind you shout from the rooftops. Not the one that needs validation every day, but the quiet kind, the kind that's felt in your consistency, in your rituals, in the way your arms always find her waist in the dark, in the way you remember how she takes her tea, in the way you never forget who she is when the rest of the world demands who she should be. She doesn't need you to fix all her fears, but she needs to know you'll walk through them with her. She doesn't need you to promise forever. She needs to feel you're here, fully, now. And that this moment, this breath, this glance, this brush of fingertips, is not just background noise in a busy life, but sacred space in a shared story. Certainty is not a contract, it's a rhythm. It's the way you show up again and again and again, even after arguments. Even after disappointment, even after her walls go up, you don't barge in, no, but you don't walk away either. You wait, you listen, you return, not because you are desperate, but because you are devoted. And when she feels that, when she feels the ground of your steadiness beneath her feet, she trusts you with her joy again, with her tears, with her surrender, not because she's forgotten her strength, but because she knows that this is what it means to be with a man who is home. So if you are watching this and wondering where to begin, begin with yourself, not with strategy, not with charm, but with honesty. What have you been withholding not just from her, but from yourself? What parts of you have grown quiet in the name of protection? What parts have you armored in logic, because no one ever told you it was okay to feel? Because the man who learns to love from that place a whole, humble, present, is the man who becomes unforgettable. Not because he's perfect, not because he plays every role flawlessly, but because he knows how to stay. In the moment, in the truth, in the tension, in the dance, and that's the love she's been waiting for. Not a fantasy, not a savior, just a man who knows who he is, and sees who she is, and chooses her not just once, but every time his eyes fall on her soul. Because when a woman is met in this way, her entire life changes, and so does yours. The way she touches you becomes richer. The way she looks at you, deeper. The way she walks beside you, prouder, not because you demanded it, but because your presence inspired it. This is not about tactics or tricks. It's about returning to the most powerful truth of all. Intimacy is not found in what you do. It's found in who you're willing to become. So let her crave you, let her rest in you, let her expand because of you. And let yourself finally be loved by the kind of woman who doesn't just fill your bed, but awakens your life. You don't have to chase that kind of love. You just have to be ready to receive it. And the only way to receive it is to become the man who understands the cravings she's never spoken, and responds not with pressure, not with performance, but with presence, the kind that says, I see you, I feel you, I won't leave. And most of all, I remember who I am when I'm with you, and I like that man. If you've made it this far, it means something in you is already shifting. You're not here to be average. You're not here to live on the surface. You're here for something deeper, richer, wiser. So breathe that in and become him, because the love you crave is already craving you.